Hi everyone, very good morning and welcome back to Crack Grade B. So today we have already completed our lecture on standard costing, right? And now we are going to complete our questions that are relevant on related to standard costing. Today we are going to cover all the kinds of conceptual questions so that every kind of concept is clear to you in form of questions, right? So let's understand question number 1. See. Question number 1 asks you, the objective of standard costing is. What is the objective of standard costing? Determine profitability of a product, determine break-even production level, control cost, allocate cost with more accuracy. Now you have to tell me that what should be the answer of first one, right? In this particular case, see, break-even production level. This is the task of marginal costing, right? In marginal costing, we tend to differentiate between fixed cost and variable cost, right? So that is related to marginal costing. Controlling cost could be allocate cost with more accuracy. We do not do anything related to the allocation of cost, right? Cost allocation means suppose a cost has been incurred, like rent of the factory building. This is the cost which has been incurred. Now I want to allocate this particular cost to the products which I have produced. So that is known as allocation of cost. We are not doing allocation of cost in standard costing. Now the two options which are remaining with me is, number 1 is determine the profitability of the product, and the number 2 is control costs, right? So what should be the correct answer as per you under this question? So see, profitability of product, I do not aim to find out the profitability of the product, right? What my particular aim under standard costing is to control the costs, because I find out under standard costing, I find out variances, right? Okay, what is the variance of material price? What is the variance of material usage? Labor mix variance, what it is? So why I am finding variance? Why I want to find out that what is the difference between actuals and standard? Why? Because I want to control the actuals, right? So that is why the aim of standard costing over here is, number 1 is to control the costs. Next, see, question number 2. A standard cost system may be used in job order costing but not process costing, okay? Process costing but not job order costing, either job order costing or process costing, neither job order costing nor process costing. Now they want to know that what is the application of standard costing. So I would like to tell you that under standard costing, what I want to do, I want to compare the actuals with the standard. So I can do that in any type of costing, be that job order costing or be that process costing, right? Be it specific order related, be it operation related. I can apply standard costing in every format. Why? Because I want to find out that what is my actual cost and what is my standard cost and what is the difference between these two, right? I can do so. So in both the cases you can apply it, but remember this thing, it is, even in our notes I have told you that mostly it is applicable in case of process costing. Why? Because the output is the standard one there. But I cannot say, even in this scenario I cannot say that in job order costing I cannot apply the standard cost. That I cannot say, right? So mostly it is used in the process costing, but there are chances that it can be used in job order costing as well, right? So you cannot deny that, okay, this is going to be used in process costing only. See next. An estimate of what cost should be is known as actual cost, ideal cost, standard cost, forecast cost. An estimate cost is known as, when you do the estimate of, then it is known as what? Actual, standard, forecast. This is known as the ideal. Here you want to find out that what cost should be, right? An estimate of what cost should be. So you want to find out that what is the ideal, right? So we have put it into as ideal cost. Next, see, you have been told to us that a standard cost is, what is a standard cost? The total amount that appears on the budget for product cost, okay. A predetermined cost which is calculated of management's standard efficient operation, the total number of units multiplied by the cost expected, and any amount that appears on budget. See, budgeting or the budgetary costing helps you in standard costing, but I cannot say that whatever is written into your budgets is your standard cost, right? So these two are not the correct option for me. Now I have been left with the two options. Option number B, predetermined cost, which is calculated from management standards of efficient operation. So this is the correct definition, because management's standard of efficiency can differ from enterprise to enterprise. So whatever management considers that, okay, this is the efficient level of operation, at that level, whatever cost you are incurring, that will be known as your standard cost, right? This is not the correct definition. This is not the wholesome definition. Option number 3, this is not correct. Hence, my option is option number B. That is a predetermined cost which is calculated from the management standard of efficient operation. Next is, which of the following best describes a basic standard? See, I have told you the ideal standard, currently achievable standard, basic standard. I have given you the definition of all these, right? So the definition, a standard set an ideal level which makes no allowance for normal losses, waste and machine downtime. This is known as the ideal standard, right? Next, a standard that assumes an efficient level of operation but which includes allowance for factors like normal loss, waste, machine downtime. This is known as the currently achievable standard. Right, this is known as the currently achievable standard. Next is a standard that is kept unchanged over a long period of time. So this is my basic standard, right? I have given you the definitions of this, so I hope that you understand this point well. That basic standard means that is not going to change for a longer period of time. It has remained static for a longer period of time, is called as the basic standard. So please remember the definitions which are being provided you in the notes, because questions can come directly from those definitions as well, right? Next, see, a standard which assumes efficient level of operations but which includes allowance for factors like waste and machine downtime is known as the ideal standard, normal standard, attainable standard, neither A nor B nor C. Tell me what it should be. Ideal, normal, attainable, what should be? Tell me. So the question is asking you a standard which is assuming efficient level of operations but which includes allowance for waste and machine downtimes as well. What it should be? So if the word attainable is given to you, then please choose it as the attainable standard. If attainable word is not given to you, then you can go for normal standard. Otherwise, choose for attainable standard, right? So attainable standard is the correct answer. Next is, what standard is based on the assumption of most favorable conditions possible? Most favorable conditions possible means nothing is going wrong, everything is as you have planned, means there is no machine time downtime, there is no machine breakdown, there is no labor shortage, there is no labor strike, nothing like of that sort, means the ideal conditions, right? So this is known as the ideal standard. So what standard is based on the assumption of most favorable conditions means when nothing bad is happening, nothing, you can perform the work at the 100% level of efficiency, that is known as the ideal standard, right? Next is, the standard cost card contains quantities and costs for direct material, direct labor, direct material and direct labor only, direct material, direct labor and overhead. Tell me what it should be. So this is a very simple question. Even if you do not know the concept of it, I have told you when I taught you the standard costing at that particular moment of time, I have told you that we calculate variances for direct material, direct labor as well as the overheads. All three of them, right? So hence standard cost card will contain quantities for all the three. Direct material, labor as well as the overheads. Next is, which of the following does not accurately describes one of the ways in which standards are developed? Okay, standard material quantities may be determined by engineering studies. Okay, supplier price list may be used to determine standard prices of material. Time and motion studies are sometimes used to determine labor efficiency standards, and employee time cards are often used to determine standard labor wage rate. Now, which one of the following does not accurately describes your way of calculation? So see, whatever is outside one, that you can use, right? So standard material quantity, yes, you can do engineering studies and then you can find out that what is the material that should be used for your production. Next is price list. Yes, if obviously we are going to procure the material from suppliers only, so whatever suppliers price list is, that is my standard price of material, correct? Time and motion studies will be used to determine labor efficiency standard, that is also correct. But employee time cards are not used to determine labor wage rate. Why? Because time cards, they show when you logged in and when you logged out. This is the purpose of time card. Have you ever been to a gated society? So in those gated society, what happens is whenever you enter the society, you have to write your name as well as the time you entered in, right? And when you came out at that time also, you have to write that particular thing. So same thing happens in case of your companies as well. the time at which employee comes, he has to write down the time, and when he goes out, that time also he has to write. Now the technology is digital, so now we have that particular machinery in which we put our hand, correct? So through our fingerprints, it is known that whenever we push our fingerprints in, our finger in, at that time they know that what time you have entered and at what time you have gone out. So time cards are for determining the time of working. These are nowhere related to the labor wage rates. Hence, we will not consider that this is the wrong option. This is the wrong, this is not correct for determining the standard. Next is, what term can be defined as a means of assessing the difference between a predetermined amount and the actual amount. So what it is, what do we do under standard costing? That's what we do, right? We find out the difference between the actuals and standard, and we call it as variance. What we call it as? Variance analysis. Next, a total cost variance is best defined as the difference between total standard cost for the last year and total standard cost in the current year. Okay, total standard cost for the last year and total actual cost in the current year. Standard cost value of output budgeted in a period and the total actual cost incurred. Okay, next, just wait for a second. And next option is the standard cost value of output achieved and the total actual cost incurred. So which one should be the correct one? How I find out my total cost? Can anyone please tell me? So see, the current year, last year question does not even arise. When I taught you standard costing, I did not talk about that we have to see what is the cost incurred in last year. No. We use that in order to fix the standard price, standard hours, all that. But whenever we talk about cost, now the playoff is the face off is between the two options, option C and option D. Option C says standard cost value of the budgeted output and actual cost incurred. Option C talks about the budgeted output. I do not have any concern with the budgeted output. No. I want to find out that whatever output I have achieved in the particular period, whatever output I have achieved in particular period, whatever production I have done in the current period, right? I want to find out, obviously, understand this particular thing. We are focusing on actuals. What has happened in the current period? That is my point of concern, right? So if I have done the production of 10,000 units, suppose this is my output achieved. This is the actual production which has done by me. So obviously I have actual cost because I have done the production. I have incurred the cost. So I already have total actual cost. Now the thing I would like to find out is what is the standard cost for achieving this particular level of output, right? What is the standard cost of achieving 10,000 units? Then I will find out that okay, this is the standard cost, this is the actual cost, and these are the variance between these two, right? Moving on to next question. Yeah. Question number 12. If standard cost is lower than the actual cost, the difference is known as. Standard cost is lower than the actual cost means you have incurred more than your standard cost. You should not have done that, right? Standard says that you should have incurred just 100 rupees, but instead of that, this is your standard cost, you have actually incurred 120 rupees. This is your actual cost, right? So in this particular scenario, this particular result is adverse for you. Don't say negative. We talk about the variances in terms of favorable or adverse. So this particular result is adverse for me. Next question. A favorable variance occurs when actual costs are less than marginal cost. I do not have any concern for marginal cost. Standard costs are less than actual cost. That will be adverse thing. Actual costs are less than the selling price. No. Actual costs are less than the standard cost. Yes, this is the right one. So what should be the favorable for me? When I have incurred lesser than what my standards are, right? So this is the favorable thing for me. Moving on to the next question. The standard quantity allowed is computed by multiplying the now what should be the standard quantity allowed? Actual input by the standard output, actual output by the standard input, actual output by the standard output, and standard output in units by the standard input allowed. See, we want to find out that what is the standard quantity allowed, right? Standard quantity of what? Obviously standard quantity of your inputs, right? So in this particular scenario, see what we do as, suppose your standard input is your standard input is 3 units. That means in order to achieve production of 1 unit of output, you have to input how many? 3 units, right? Now suppose my actual output is 10,000 units. I have told you, you will find out standard cost with reference to actual production achieved, right? We already discussed this in the previous question that whenever you want to find out standard cost, you will always have in your mind that what is the actual production, what is the actual output I have achieved. So this is my actual output 10,000 units. Now they are telling me that please find out what is the standard quantity allowed. So how I will do that? Standard quantity allowed. What is the standard quantity of input allowed? They are talking about input, right? They are talking about input, that in order to achieve 10,000 units of actual output, what is the standard input allowed? So I will multiply 10,000 with 3. That means standard quantity allowed is 30,000 units, right? So the correct answer is actual output in units multiplied by the standard input allowed. So this is how you have to find out the questions. Next is the difference between actual price and the standard price multiplied by the actual quantity of materials purchased is the, you are finding out the differences between the actual price and standard price. That means clearly you are finding out the material price variance, right? Why? Because you are comparing standard price with the actual price multiplied by the actual quantity. Next question. The difference between the actual quantity, okay, and the standard quantity multiplied by the standard price. So here you are comparing the difference between the quantities, actual quantity and the standard quantity. So efficiency, volume, price, usage. Tell me what it should be. Question number 16. We have talked about that this is the material usage variance, right? Why? Because you are comparing the quantity of the material. Volume variance, nothing of that sort we have read. What we have read is material usage variance. So do not get confused by seeing these two. They have used different set of words in order to confuse you, right? So that's why I was telling that you have to read what are the different formulas and you have to talk about them. Next is question number 17. Which of the following is correct with regard to using the standard quantity to compute material variances? Okay. Standard quantity is used. Material price variance, yes. Material usage variance, no. Is that correct answer? We do not use standard quantity in material price variance because we use actual quantity in material price variance. Actual price, standard price multiplied by the actual quantity. So the first option is wrong. So clearly wherever they are writing that we are using standard quantity in material price variance, that option is wrong for me. So that means option number 2 is also wrong. Third one is material price variance, no. Fourth one, material price variance, no. Then they are saying material usage variance, no. Material usage variance, yes. We use standard quantity in material usage variance. Just now we talked, we compared the actual quantity with standard quantity multiplied by the standard price. So option number D is correct because I do not use standard quantity in material price variance formula, but I do use standard quantity in the material usage formula, right? Okay, next. Which of the following is correct with regard to using the standard unit price, standard price to compute material variances? See, where do you use standard price? Do you use standard price in material price variance? Yes, we do. So these two options are wrong for me, correct? So let's just eliminate them. I use standard price in material price variance. Do I use standard price in material usage variance? Do I use it? Yes. When I compare actual quantity with the standard quantity, the thing which I multiply the difference with is standard price. So I use standard price in both these formulas. I also use in material price variance and I also use in material usage variance. So option number B is the correct one. Next is the term standard hours allowed measures budgeted output at actual hours, budgeted output at standard hours, actual output at standard hours and actual output at actual hours. So we just now talked about standard hours allowed, standard units allowed. We always talk about this in terms of actual output. What is your actual output? 10,000 units. Okay. What is the standard hour to produce 1 unit of output? You always calculate standard as per that basis only. You always find out that okay, what hours I need in order to produce 1 unit of output. That's how you calculate your standards. Then you multiply it with the actuals, whatever you have achieved, to find out that what are the standard hours allowed. Tell me, just think about it. Will you ever find out standards that, okay, what is the standard of producing 10,000 units? What is the standard of producing 15,000 units? You are not going to calculate directly like that. You will always find out that what is the standard time, what is the standard quantity for 1 unit of output. And then whatever actual production you are doing, you will multiply with that. Right? So we always find out that what is the amount of time, what is the price for one quantity, and then whatever actual thing you have done, you will multiply it with that. So I hope we are clear with this. Are we clear on it? So the correct answer is actual output at the standard hours. Next, see. Labor rate variance is computed as actual labor hours worked less. Now see, they are telling you to compute rate variance. So rate variance means you have to compute the variance on the basis of rate. So these are computing the variance on the hours worked. We do not want it. So actual rate less standard rate, correct. Multiplied by standard hours or actual hours? Actual. So price, material price variance, labor rate variance, they always compute on the actual hours worked. So this is the correct option. Actual rate less standard rate multiplied by the actual hours worked. Next is if the actual number of labor hours worked is less than the standard labor hours allowed for equivalent units produced, this indicates. So they are asking you if the actual number of labor hours worked is less than the standard labor hours worked for equivalent units produced. This indicates that unfavorable labor rate variance, favorable total labor variance, unfavorable labor efficiency variance, or a favorable labor efficiency variance. See, here we are talking about the hours worked. We are nowhere talking about the price. So this option is not one for me. Total labor variance, this is given in order to confuse you. You have got a direct formula or a direct variance called as labor efficiency variance. Labor efficiency variance is the correct one because that talks about the hours worked by the labor. Correct. So in this particular scenario, if your actual hours worked are less than your standard hours, your management has said to the labor that please perform this task in 100 hours. Labors did that task in just 90 hours. That means labors are efficient. So tell me whether this is a favorable thing or unfavorable thing for you. It is a favorable thing because the task has been achieved in lesser number of hours. So this is a favorable labor efficiency variance for me, right? Okay. Moving on to the next question. Which of the following is correct with regard to the standard labor hours being used to compute the labor variances? Okay, standard labor hours is being used, fine. So labor rate variance, okay. They are asking you where do you use standard labor hours? Do I use it in rate variance? Let me remember it. So rate variance, I talk about standard rate, and actual hours. I do not talk about standard hours. So my answer should be no. and these two options are incorrect. So I do not talk about standard hours in my labor rate variance. Do I talk about in labor efficiency variance? A big yes. Why? Because I compute what are my standard hours, what have been my actual hours, right? And then I multiply it with the standard rate. So this is the correct option, option number D. I do talk about standard labor hours in labor efficiency variance, but I do not talk about in the labor rate variance. Next is yeah. See, which of the following is correct with regard to using the standard labor rate to compute labor variance? Standard labor rate is getting used in rate variance. Yes, I do use it. And do I use it in efficiency variance? Yes, I do use it. Standard rate is used for multiplying in the efficiency variance. So both the answers are yes. Next is, what is the primary benefit of standard costing system? It records cost at what should have been incurred. Okay. It allows for a comparison of differences between the actual and standard. It is easy to implement. It is inexpensive. This is the primary benefit. It allows for a comparison of differences between the actuals and the standard one. This is the primary benefit for you to compute the standard costing. Next is the standard which can be attained under the most favorable conditions possible. Again, this is the ideal standard. Next, a standard which is established for use unaltered for an indefinite period is called as basic standard. We have already talked about it. The standard which you do not going to change, you are not going to change it for an indefinite period is called as the basic standard. Next one is, which of the following is not a type of standard, conceptually speaking? Not a type of standard. Ideal, negative, expected, current. So obviously, if I ask you what should be the standard, do we make any standard for negative things? No. We always make standards for the possibilities in life, what we can achieve, what we should achieve. So we never ever make the standards for the negative things, and hence negative standards will not be made. This is not a type of standard. Next is, which of the following statement about the ideal standards is false? It is called theoretical or maximum efficiency standard. You should be telling that what is false. So it is called theoretical or maximum efficiency. Yes, these are the standard costs that are set for production under optimal condition. Okay. Next is, it makes no allowance for wastage, spoilage and machine breakdown. Correct, it does not allow any allowance. Next is, it can be used for cash budgeting or product costing. Now which one is the incorrect one out of them? So everything is correct, optimal conditions, maximum efficiency, and it does not allow anything, but this cannot be used. Ideal standards are never used for cash budgeting or product costing. Why cannot be used product costing? I'll tell you. So suppose your product cost is 10 rupees, right? Now, if you will do the costing on the basis of ideal standards, ideal means no machine breakdown, no labor strikes, nothing bad is happening in your company. But what is reality? In real life, all these things happen. But you are doing your product costing on the basis of ideal cost. You have told that nothing of that sort happens in my company and my product is being produced without any interruption and this is being produced at 8 rupees. This is your ideal costing. But in reality, labor are doing strikes, labor are being absent, machine is going for a breakdown, and because of all these, the actual cost at attainable standards comes at 11 rupees. So this, if you will do your costing at the ideal standards, then you will incur a huge loss because you will not be able to recover your true cost or the actual cost. That's why it cannot get used for the your product costing. Next one is the cost of product as determined under standard cost system is fixed cost, historical cost, direct cost or the predetermined cost. What type of cost it is? It is a predetermined cost. You already determined that in advance. The amount of work achievable in an hour at standard efficiency levels. What is the amount of work achievable in an hour? An ideal standard direct labor usage per hour as standard hour, the direct labor efficiency variance. They are telling you what is the amount of work that is achievable in an hour at standard efficiency level. This is the ideal standard? No. The direct labor usage per hour, a standard hour, the direct labor efficiency variance. So this is the standard hour. Whatever you are going to achieve in the normal efficiency level, that is a standard hour for us. So these are the 30 questions for standard costing. Tomorrow we will try to conduct a session on the numerical questions as well, right? So these were the conceptual questions and you should be knowing that this is how you can expect questions on standard costing. Most of the questions will be formula based, like for that particular thing you should remember the formulas. The other thing which you need to learn about is that how do we calculate it, right? So like your some questions were there where they asked you that what are the standards input required or the standard cost. So you should know that we always base these calculations on the basis of the actual output. So one thing is that. Next thing is sometimes the examiner confuses you with the terms, right? Like in case of labor or the material, they have given you three terms: usage, volume, efficiency, all of these, right? So you should be knowing that, okay, in case of material, what the formula is known as. They talked about quantity and they gave you three things related to materials, related to volume, efficiency and usage. So you must be knowing this particular thing that in case of material we call it as usage. So these are the little things where they can confuse you, right? So you should keep a tab on it. Please remember the formulas, please remember the definitions, what kind of standards we are talking about, and this is all that you need to do under your standard costing. Apart from it, we also have to calculate the numerical questions. That is definitely on my agenda, and in the next class I'll be covering those questions so that you have a proper and basic understanding on how to tackle the questions of standard costing. Some people were telling me that, ma'am, please cover standard costing in detail. So I think that I have covered standard costing in greater detail, and even if you have got any sort of doubt, then please feel free to ask. And if you like this video, then please give us a thumbs up. Thank you so much for watching this video.